All right. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to those of you still joining us from the West Coast. Welcome to today's Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro webinar. I'm going to give folks just another few seconds to get in and sign on to the webinar. Make sure everybody's got their speakers, connections, all those sorts of fun things working. Please be aware we are recording this session, and we will be sending out a link after the session is completed to all registered attendees. I'm James Wedding. I'm going to be your host for today, and we'll get started here in just a few seconds. See if that number climbs up just a little bit further. All right. We're starting to level off a little bit. Looks like we've got our first question and answer. Hello back to you. So let's get started with our session today. First off, a quick little bit of legalese to cover me. This is a safe harbor statement. So please remember that this presentation today, we may make statements regarding future events and development efforts. Please keep these based on what I know today, based on what the rest of our team on the call knows today, and sometimes things do change. Just don't make purchasing decisions based on any of the future or forward-looking statements that we make. Logistics, just in case you haven't figured it out by now, we are using computer audio today. We do have a Q&A pane over in the Zoom webinar control panel. So if you have any questions during the webinar today, or if I'm not clear about something, please fire off on the Q&A panel. And in the background, we've got a couple of folks helping out. We've got Lou Holland on my team here in the technical specialist team. And then we also have the man of the hour, actually it's probably today, Chris Aquino, joining us from our product and marketing team. So Chris will help out with all of the real hard stuff. Lou and I will handle any of the easy ones. So make sure you make sure your questions are good, make them hard, and keep Chris and Lou busy. Before we get started, Brittany's going to fire off a few polls so we know a little bit more about who is here and joining us today. And I'm going to wait till we get about half of you answering. So, if you want to move past the polls, you got to answer the polls. All right. So what tools do you currently use to collaborate? Lots of BIM Collaborate Pro folks today. Thank you for coming in. I am sure you have some questions as we go through this webinar today, so be sure to go ahead and ask those as we go. Lots of folks using Dropbox, Office, etc., and we'll be sure to address some of the questions around there. And then, of course, there's always some folks on the VPN who are probably fighting for bandwidth with their kids. All right, next question. And Brittany, are you moving? Okay, great. What's your role in your team? What kind of engineer and designer are you? Are you a general contractor, a VDC manager, IT professional? For those of you who don't know me, I am what I refer to as a recovering IT administrator. I came from an engineering firm of about 100 people, survey, landscape engineering, project managers, accountants, all those good folks, and got to deal with all the joys of the IT side of the house. So sometimes you'll hear me slip into some of my IT background as we talk about these different pieces of the puzzle. Looks like mostly designers, engineers, and project managers. Cool. We are going to hit square on the head with your role today. Let's see what our next question is. Oh yeah, how'd you get here? Questions about new offerings? Great. Any changes to the current software? Probably, right? It's Autodesk. We're always changing something a little bit, always making things a little bit better, faster, more efficient, and hopefully you'll get more value out of your subscription. So let's see those questions as we go through the webinar. Please, again, be sure to fire those off and see what we got. So thanks all of you for participating. Pushing close to 3/4 or 75% of the audience joining in, and we appreciate your feedback. That helps us as we go through the day and talk about these things. All right. let's close our polls. I think I'm going to click the right button. We'll see. Are we back to sharing slides again, hopefully?
Yep.
Great. So your host, I introduced myself a little bit. As I said, I'm James Wedding. I'm a technical specialist. Lou, you want to jump in and say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. It's Louisa Holland, Lou, as most people know me, and I'll be here on the Q&A. And I see there's a few coming in already, but yeah, thanks for joining, everyone.
And Chris, you want to say hi this morning? I don't normally put him on the spot.
Hi. My name is Chris Aquino. As mentioned, I'm one of the product marketers focused on adoption for BIM Collaborate Pro, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
All right. Thanks, you guys, for helping out. Thanks for jumping in and answering all the questions. I often do the question duty, and I'm firmly convinced the Q&A is harder than the presenting on this webinar. You guys are always filled with lots of great and challenging questions. So real quickly, if you are interested in BIM Collaborate Pro, as you go through this webinar, if you are one of the folks that has not already kicked off a BIM Collaborate Pro subscription or a trial, please feel free to visit the Collaborate Pro trial page, sign up. But my best practice that I will always tell you is reach out to your partner, reach out to your Autodesk rep. This is not a product that you just sort of jump in, wave your hands around, and you get it figured out right off the bat. There's a lot going on. Think about it. This is a way that your whole enterprise comes together. It's a complex solution, bringing together IT, bringing together design, bringing together project management, bringing together, accounting and survey and all the stakeholders in your projects. So don't be afraid to get some help. That's what we're here for. That's what your partners are here for. That's what your added resellers are here for. So please reach out to them and talk about how we can help your team be more efficient. Let's get started with an agenda. We'll talk a little bit about how we've collaborated up to this point. And again, I'll lean back on my IT background a little bit here. And then I'm going to sort of switch through 3 different hats through this webinar. First off, we're going to talk about what does this look like to your typical Civil 3D user? And what does that collaboration feel like? How do you interact with files? How do you interact with the Autodesk Construction Cloud as you're going through your typical design day? We're going to talk a little bit about IT management, because I know that is a major concern. Where are all these files being stored? How do they move back and forth? How do I keep this process moving, keep my team together as simply and as straightforward as possible? And then we're also going to look at project management, because this is the real change when we start talking about the Construction Cloud, when we start talking about BIM Collaborate Pro, when we start talking about collaboration. Bringing the project manager into the data as opposed to paper check sets or PDF check sets. This is a real change for the operation, and this is where you can really speed up your design team process. And I'm going to minimize the questions because you guys are already making me think too much about those pieces of the puzzle. So that's our agenda. Let's get started and talk a little bit about the past. Well, I think everybody has sat through this. We saw the response to the survey, right? Everybody's using some combination of these different tools, and we all know the shortcomings of these tools. If you've been working from home the past few months, you know the joy of using that VPN at your office and fighting through the little tiny pipe coming out of your office, right? Because your office IT guys probably didn't spec for upload speed. They didn't expect 30 of you be trying to grab 5, 10, 50 meg files and send them to your home for the last 18 months. Basic network storages is fine, but then you're talking about hard drives, you're talking about backup solutions, you're talking about, hey, I accidentally deleted a file and I need to pull that from backup. Oh, the client wants to see the version we had 2 weeks ago. Can you get that for me? All of those processes in terms of network drives and local storage have some real time sucks in terms of being able to access old versions or being able to access old data. And at some point, you're buying hard drives. Any sort of point solution we have that's part of a network really is built around a single piece of the puzzle. It's not built for that life cycle of the project from concept to delivery to operations. And so we built one. Autodesk looked at this. We heard from you as our customers. We heard from stakeholders. We heard from industry partners. And we said, we get it. We've got the tools. We understand how the design comes together. We're going to build a new solution. And so we created the Construction Cloud, a unified platform to really take you from the absolute earliest conceptual napkin sketch, Inforix model, format design of a building, whatever it might be, all the way to turnover, handover, and operations. And we eat our own process. We eat our own dog food, as they often say, is that, we just completed a new building expansion and renovation here in our Denver office area. And we worked with the Construction Cloud to do the design. And when I need a new switch or a new light bulb in conference room 5, we use Autodesk Ops to request that change. So we really are looking at this project design and project delivery all the way through. And that's where the Construction Cloud comes into play. Now, you'll hear me sometimes make the mistake and say BIM 360 or BIM 360 design. And there was a little bit of branding last year. And this is where we're now referring to as Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro, or sometimes you'll see us write or email you something along the lines of ABC, Autodesk BIM Collaborate. It's easy as ABC. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Pro piece for the designers. But when you're looking at old messages, when you're looking at the old forums, if you see BIM 360 design, you see Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro, we're generally talking about the same thing. So just take that information, absorb it, be aware of it. There's not two offerings out there now. If you talk to your partner about getting pricing, you're going to get pricing for BIM Collaborate Pro. All right, so what is BIM Collaborate Pro? It's a host of solutions really built around the design process. So the bottom layer of this cake is the Autodesk Docs solution. The Autodesk Docs solution is part of your AEC collection. It includes the storage in the cloud, markup capability, issues, version comparison, and we're going to look at Docs, don't worry. But when we talk about BIM Collaborate and then BIM Collaborate Pro, that's where we're going to move into addressing the design process with Civil 3D. So the next step, we're going to put on our Civil 3D user hat, and we're going to talk about BIM Collaborate Pro. That's how we manage, create, and consume data shortcuts in that Civil 3D environment. If any of you are architects and work with Revit, that's where we bring together that sync to central with the Construction Cloud as our central model location. The design collaborate piece, the Autodesk BIM Collaborate, the design collaboration is where we talk about submissions, packages, and transmittals. And we will look at that today. We're going to share some models with my architect peers that did this demo last week, Lou, I think it was. I think they did this demo from the architectural perspective last week, and we're going to consume the data that they shared. And then we'll also look at the model coordination. We talk about how do we compare and make sure that when we go and put pipe in the ground, we're not running into the pipe that the MEP contractor put in. We're not running into the foundation that the structural engineer laid in for that building. So lots of tools that can really bring all of your design team elements into that single common data environment. Now, we're going to talk about Docs a little bit more because this is the platform. This is the baseline. This is where we store all of that data as we go through this process. And we talk about users moving data in and out of the Construction Cloud. You're going to see the files that Lou and I have been working on for probably 18 months now, and you're going to see versions. And the great thing about the Docs environment is that we're not counting gigabytes. We're not even counting terabytes. You just store your data up there. We understand that counting gigs and going back and deleting old versions of files is a massive waste of your time. It really is. You need to be designing. You need to be coordinating. You need to be doing other things rather than sending out emails saying, hey, can I delete this version of the file? We need to free up some storage space on the hard drive. So as long as you have a subscription to Autodesk Docs, you have unlimited file storage in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. You'll also see that this reduces the requirements for your on-site storage. And because it's Amazon hosted on the back end, to be honest, you don't even really need to do backups of this data anymore. Again, I was an IT administrator, and I'm pretty sure that Amazon is better at IT infrastructure than I ever was. So you can go belt and suspenders if you like, but it's not necessary. And that means you can do other things with your time. Oh, this is all plugged together by a tool called the desktop connector. This is how we keep that local file storage in sync with the desktop, excuse me, with the Construction Cloud. And we'll look at how that works as part of our demo. So let's go live. Remember, we're going to switch hats a few times here first. So let's start by putting on our Civil 3D user hat and just take a look at one of our file drawings. So here we are in Civil 3D environment. Hopefully this is familiar to everyone. And let's talk about a few things that change when you do use Civil 3D in conjunction with BIM Collaborate Pro and the Construction Cloud. First off, when you open up Civil 3D, you're going to see this option for a Start tab in the top left. And that's not new. But what is new is this idea of Autodesk Docs on the left-hand side. When we look at Docs, we're actually looking at the Construction Cloud. You can see here, I've got a site called TS Construction, Tech Specialist Construction. That's essentially my company in this environment. And then we see a project number here listed. And then I see all of the project files just like I normally would. But there's some key differences here when we're looking at these files. And so I actually want to make sure I'm looking at the right project. So I'm going to switch over to the Denver Hub project that Lou and I are going to work on. And you can see the file folder structure here as well. This file folder structure, it's whatever your current file folder structure is right now. You do not have to change the way you work to work in the Construction Cloud. This means you don't have to do training. You don't have to teach people, oh, we used to file in J:/projects project number, and now you've got to do a check in or check out. No, we're just going to point them to the site and then a project number and then the files like they always were. It means you can tell people how to do this over donuts or bagels or whatever your carb of choice is. When we look at a file list, though, we do get some more interesting information. And the main one to me is this idea of the locked state, because I used to work in the cube farm. I used to stand up and go, all right, who's got the grading plan open? I need to make a quick change to the ADA ramp on the south side of the building. With the Construction Cloud and ABC Pro, I know who has that file open. I know that Lou locked this back in September. Apparently, she's been working on these utilities for a long time. Maybe she locked it because she wanted to keep everybody else out of it. Maybe she was going out of town for a month, whatever it might be. She's kept that file and kept it locked. Now, I happen to know that we locked this file this morning. So maybe if I need to work in the corridor drawing, I could shoot Lou a quick message, or I could call her or Slack or Team, whatever your communication of choice is. But I know it's Lou because the Construction Cloud tells me, and we're keeping this up to date. And I can also see files that are open. I can see different versions, and I can see the last time they were modified. All really simple to access through this normal user opening protocol. Now, you like Windows Explorer? Go for it. When we go to File and Open, we can absolutely point to my computer. So let's look at my PC, and there's that same device. So Autodesk Docs and the TS Construction site that I was on, and I can see all of my projects here as well. Same sort of information, but I don't get the nice information about locked, who unlocked, all those sorts of things that I get by using the Start tab. Tomato, however you want to get to your data, you can get there quickly and easily, just like you always have. Once I'm in a file, a couple of little things change in the idea of prospector, and it's generally around this idea. You'll see sometimes these little icons that pop up to indicate you're in a cloud-based project. But as far as Civil 3D goes, as far as working with the drawing goes, it's the same as it ever was. You are working with Civil 3D installed on your machine. You are working with versions of the files that are cached on your machine, and you are taking full advantage of whatever hardware you have available. We are not running Civil 3D in the cloud yet. I don't know if we ever will. I don't know. For your users, for yourself, you are running Civil 3D the same as you always have, and you just do, and you file, and you open, and you save, and you XREF, and you data reference it, all those sorts of things, just like you have. So what does this mean at the end of the day? It means that moving your design team from the local file server to the Autodesk Construction Cloud is a 10 or 15-minute process for the designers. You explain to them, hey, we're going to open from Autodesk Docs instead of from our network path, and you're done. Now, there are some processes involved in moving data to the cloud, and you are, I'm sure there are questions popping up about migration, all those sorts of things. We do have some tools, we have some options. Those are things you'll want to discuss with your team. You'll want to discuss, again, with your partner or with your Autodesk contacts, and make sure that we make that process of migration as smooth as possible. And at the end of this session, we'll talk about some best practices if we have time. All right. Designer hat off. Let's put on the IT administrator hat. And I'm going to open up Windows Explorer because this is where I typically look at files from an IT administration standpoint. Now, remember I said all of this is happening locally. All of this is happening through the Autodesk Docs. When I install the desktop connector and I am signed in using my Autodesk account, then I see all of the sites that I have access to. And in this case, TS Construction, and here are all of the various projects. Now, I'm only seeing projects that I have access to. So in the past, maybe I had 500 projects on my local IT server or on my local network drive. And odds are, at one point during the week, I was going to grab one of those and drag it, or somebody on my team was, or somebody in the company was going to drag a project on accident, drop it in the folder, and then everybody hit the panic button because they couldn't find the project anymore. Well, who deleted the project? We all know nobody deleted the project. It was just moved. And then somebody had to go find it and move it back. With this solution, one, you can't drag projects around, so that makes that project a little bit easier. Two, I only see the jobs that I am involved in. I do not see all 500 jobs that my company is involved in. So what does that mean to you? It means, one, your file list to navigate is a lot shorter, easier to get around, easier to see what you need to see. Two, it means that if you are working with clients that maybe compete, or you are working on projects that are not necessarily public, or you're working on something where the government is involved, only the people that are allowed to see that project based on their permissions will see that project. It allows you to define and control security in a much easier manner than you could by having different shares or doing it through Windows or group policy or anything else. Now, this is all brought together, and we're going to look at that same ACC Denver Hub project. And you can see here the different file folders. And this folder structure, like I said before, is the same as whatever you pick it to be. So this is what Lou set up. This is sort of, I don't even know what standard this is. This is something sort of out of like master spec or something. But if we go and look at, for example, all of these JW projects, they're created more along the way that my company that I was working at set things up. And we just used, sort of discipline names. And then we had some other options along the way. But whatever folder structure you want to build it. It's entirely up to you. You can use it the same as it ever was. When we look at these pieces of the puzzle and we look at these different projects, we're going to see that there are some projects and there are some files that are sitting on my machine and are synced. So synced means that what I have on my machine matches what is up in the Construction Cloud. Cool. You're going to see some files that are stale, and stale means the version I have on my machine does not match what is up in the Construction Cloud. So maybe I'll just right click and sync that file real quickly. And we'll let that catch up, and that'll all refresh and we'll all be good to go there. You'll also see some files that are online, and the online means that I know the file exists up in the Construction Cloud, but I don't have a version on my local machine. So if I want to collect that, or if I need to use that, I'll use that same sync button as we go along the way. So all of these different pieces are available to you to manage these files. And if I want to sync a number of them, let's see if I can do this with multiple. I can sync in advance if I know I'm going to be working with a number of different files. We can also select if we want to. Do I have anything in photos? Yep, look at that. They're all online. Let's go up here. I'm going to go to photos on the folder, and I'm going to select sync there. And I'm going to drag there's my desktop connector in action. It is transferring those files down to my local machine. Hopefully now, there we go, synced. It's easy to move these files back and forth. If you are working with something that you need, the desktop connector, Civil 3D, will download that file on demand. If you know you're going to be working with something, especially if you're working with LiDAR, you're working with large Esri or large databases or something along those lines that are stored in the cloud, go do that sync in advance. There's my tip for the day. When you come in the morning, go to your file folder and hit sync while you go get coffee, while you go chat at the water cooler and talk about the game last night. Doing that sync in advance means that when you go to use those files, they're already cached on your local machine and they're already current, and you're going to be up and going right when you're ready to go. If you need to save some space on your hard drive, you can also, and again, I'm going to select one file, right click, and I can select free up space. And that is going to delete that file from my local cache, but it's going to keep it up in the Construction Cloud. So you can manage these files quickly and easily. And if you're an IT administrator, these tools are designed to help you manage that hard drive local storage space, keeping your people as efficient as possible, but not blowing up your hard drive with unnecessary files. This all runs through Desktop Connector. I will, let me pull up the Desktop Connector because I do want to look at one thing really quickly here. And I'm not sure, mine's hidden over in the corner of my screen, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to show this to you. But one of the things I do want you to be aware of is that the Desktop Connector gets updated frequently. We find things that are going on. We find ways to make this process more efficient. So anytime you are working with the Construction Cloud and you are working with the Desktop Connector and you see an option to update the Desktop Connector, please do it. You know, it will just keep the process moving along as fast as possible. It will keep your software as current, and it will keep your team moving as smoothly as possible. Okay, all the local stuff is done. We have talked about the Civil 3D user, right? Pretty simple to make that transition. We've talked about a few of the IT questions in terms of file management. Remember, this is working with a local cache. You are moving things back and forth with the Construction Cloud. That's a good thing. One pro tip, get off the VPN. If you are going to work with the Construction Cloud, get off of your VPN, because the Construction Cloud is, again, it's hosted at Amazon. And you want your connection between you and Amazon as smooth and as straightforward as possible. You want to use the maximum amount of pipe you can. And what I have found is that if you are running from your home to your office VPN and then to Amazon, you got a pretty good bottleneck there in the middle. So be cognizant of where your data is moving around, and you'll find that your experience is a lot better. Okay, let's jump up into the Construction Cloud. Let's go take a look at this, and we're going to jump into this. Now, I'm going to use Microsoft Edge. You can use Chrome, you can use Safari. It's entirely up to you. This is what I'm going to use today to go through this process. But let's take a look at some of these pieces of the puzzle. First off, we're looking at the project files. You can see the same file folder structure here. You can see the same Denver Hub project. And I'm going to work in the Docs module to begin with. Now, remember, we're going to talk about design collaboration, and we're going to talk about model coordination. But for right now, we're just starting at that lower level. We're just looking at files. And again, you can see all the files that we worked with throughout the day. You can see who did what. You can see that Lou's got a funny little avatar for some of her contractor sock puppet, whatever it might be. We can also see the version history. So let's go ahead and take a look at a file here in the browser. I'm going to look at this. Let's look at this alignment profiles, DWG, real quickly. And we're looking at version 74. And I'm just going to come over and look at some of the design profiles. So we've got some access profiles for the parking lot. And the important thing to note here is that I am looking at a live Civil 3D DWG. I am not looking at a published PDF. I am not looking at an image. I didn't plot anything. I opened up the DWG that my design team is working on. So remember, I forgot, I swapped hats. I'm a project manager right now. I'm looking at this drawing and I want to see how far along are we with these design profiles. And apparently the answer is not very far. Lou, go do something. But we'll go look at this a little bit later, and I'm just sort of giving Lou a hard time. The idea here is that I don't have to wait for check sets. And I can hear you like, oh, so what? What does a check set take? What does it take to plot a PDF? What does it take to plot a piece of paper? It takes 5 minutes. It takes 2 minutes. You got a 30-page set. That's a pretty small little subdivision project, right? 30 pages, 2 minutes. You just spend an hour plotting to give to a PM, to mark up in some way, to give back to you, to go look at, and then put it back in the drawing. That's an hour of your life at least you've spent just moving data between formats to communicate. It's $100. Do it every single week. It's $5,000 a year. This is the first place where we're like, look, it doesn't take very much change in your process to bring a lot of value to that change. So we're going to look at DWGs. We can mark these up. We can do all sorts of things on this piece of paper. Let's see if we've got some sheets. Yeah, there we go. Let's go take a look at this sheet and we can see this version of the file, and I can do things like mark this up. So we've got markup tools. Let's just go pin mode. Okay, let's go. I would love a good red Sharpie, and I'm going to put a piece of text in the middle. Hey, block out this part of the drawing that's not part. Because at my company, we always obscured the non-sheet stuff. So I'm going to make that mark. I'm going to go ahead and publish that markup. And it's available now to anybody who sees and has permission to look at this drawing can see that markup, and they can see that I've put comments in. So if I'm a PM doing this review, I can enter those comments, and now my technician, my EIT, my project engineer, whoever has permission and comes behind me to make those changes can see those markups and make them as part of their design review. Markups are easy, are great. We can also go in and look at, oh, I closed that, excuse me. I can go in, I can add something more specific, like an issue to address. So again, I'm going to go back to that same page. And I'm going to add an issue down here at the profile level. So I'm going to add an issue for the design. And we're going to put it right there. And the title's design, that's fine. Description, make sure we tie to existing pavement plus 0.2. We're going to go ahead and raise it up so we get a little positive drainage. And I'm going to assess the difference. The reason we assign things is now we get a little bit of history. We get a little bit of accountability to this. And by the way, I need this by, let's see what today is, October 19th. I need this by Friday. Hope you're not too busy, Lou. And we're all set and done. And maybe if I want to add a reference, maybe if I want to add a picture, or maybe if I have a PDF from my reviewing agency calling out for specific design elements, whatever, I can attach that reference to that issue. Now that I'm done with that issue, Lou's going to get an email and we are set to go. And she's going to go, oh, James assigned me an issue. I can go open that issue up. She can review and understand what's going on with this design element. As we go through the design process, we'll also want to understand what changes, especially again, wearing my project manager hat. I'm going to look at those alignments and look at, oh, I don't want to look at the current. I actually want to view different versions. So you can see here, we're on version 74. I'm going to go ahead and compare a couple of versions. And we're not going to look at the one today because I think there's some design elements back here at version 71. So we're going to compare what happened in the 21st to what happened on the 29th. And we're going to compare the parking access on these two pages. Those look pretty similar, but I can see some little things going on. Let's go ahead and compare and make sure and see what we've got going on. So we're going to click compare there. And I'm going to show my age a little bit here. So for those of you who used to work with vellum or mylar and actually had light tables set out on drafting boards, think of this as stacking sheets on top of each other. And what you get is the ability to basically see one version is red, one version is blue. And when you stack them on top of each other and turn them both on, you see the differences in the colors on the page. So we can see that the title block is pretty much the same, but that Lou did some work in terms of shuffling the profile where it was on the page. We got rid of some 10 lines. We got rid of or added some point information, but this lets us really see, did my design team make the changes I asked for? What changed between versions? And this works whether it is in your house, you know, your update, or more importantly, it works when you're comparing data that is coming from somebody else. So if you were working with a landscape architect who is doing planting plans for you, you're working with an architect who is changing a building footprint or the sidewalk around the building because they're modifying access, whatever it might be. You can compare those versions and very easily see what changed and understand how your project is evolving. And we can compare version 1 with version 73. We can compare version 1 with version 2. We can compare version 73 with the version 77. Because we have that unlimited storage, you can absolutely go back and view the evolution of your design all the way through, from concept to design to construction to build to operate. Okay, now we looked at the drawing. We talked about a couple of issues. We talked about a couple of markups and some of the different things that we can work with there. Now let's take a look at how we can work across these different teams and not just look at work, but how can we work with the architect, the MEP, the other stakeholders, that landscape architect I just mentioned. I'm going to move over to this design collaboration module. So we're going to move to design collaboration just so you can see that. And I'm going to go back to home. And we're going to remember, I'm wearing my civil hat here so we can see the civil piece at the top. And I'm going to click this little ellipsis to bring down the drawer and see what's going on with my project. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to consume a package. I'm going to review a package. And then we're going to talk about how to publish a package, because they're pretty similar, but they're a little bit different in terms of process. And think of this as your Monday coordination meeting, right? We used to do this with FTP, and you hope that everybody updated on Monday. You would download, and then you would go through and try and figure out what changed. Well, with design collaboration, you do it all in the cloud before you bother your design team. So I'm going to look up here at these shared packages, and I'm going to expand this a little bit further. And like I said, my peers on the architectural side of this process did this demo last week, and I can see that they made some changes here in October. So all of these bubbles have different meanings. The white circle means that they created a package for me. They have data to share with me that I haven't consumed yet. So here's our package that they made last week on the 14th. I'm going to click on that. And then I can see that they changed the housing model, but I want to go ahead and look at it. So I'm just going to click on this Revit model, and I'm going to see what they did. What did you change on this model? And I can view the Revit model directly in my browser. I can measure, I can slice, I can do different things. It's kind of fun to take some of these pieces and work with the model and look at different floor plans. You can look at what, especially if it's something like this building where there's a basement involved. Hey, did you change anything in terms of the building foundation that I need to be aware of as the civil, whatever it might be. But most importantly to me, the most valuable to me is this ability to show the changes between what I consumed last and the version that they just shared with me. And you can see in this case, no changes were found from my perspective. So I can say, well, no changes found. I don't really know why you're sending me your data, but I want you to know, Mr. Architect, that I have looked at your design, I have reviewed it for changes, and I have updated my model to reflect those changes. So I'm going to click that consume button, and now you can see that that button has gone red. And when I look up here at the tab and I zoom in a little bit, you can see now I've got a red icon in that drawer, in that swim lane. I've consumed that data. Great. I am up to date with what the architect is doing. I didn't have to have an hour-long coordination call. I didn't have to fight with my FTP site, my SharePoint site, my Dropbox, my OneBox, my OneDrive, my SkyDrive, my Apple Drive, whatever your drive of choice is. I just did it all inside of here. And if there were notes, I would have gotten those as well. So it's a really powerful way to bring those teams together and streamline that process, quit having meetings, focus on the design. Now, for me, as the civil, I want to go ahead and maybe create a package. So again, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to go to my civil piece. And over here, you can see I haven't done anything recently, but let's go ahead and create a new package. So this is going to be how I share data to the architect, to the structural, to the GC as we go along the lines. So I'm going to create a package. I'm going to look at the models and DWGs that are available to share. Let's go ahead and share out our different utilities. And I'm going to save those three. Those are the things that I'm going to share with them. And there's the changes. Let's go ahead and share. And what is this package name? We'll call it, that's fine, updated utilities. And I don't need the date because they'll be able to see the date based on frost discussion, because it's getting cold here. So maybe we need to push things a little deeper in the ground. Share. That's it. Now I have shared that data information out. The architect, the GC, all those folks, they will see that in their swim lane. So let's expand this out. See, for me, it's green, it's filled. I'm going to swap paths for a second again. I know it's crazy, but if I am the architect, I now see that the civil has a package I haven't consumed that was shared just now. So remember, we're wearing hats here because it's a demo and I can only be in so many places at once. So this allows us now as the architect, I'll see, ooh, the civil updated. If I click on that one, I can see that the updated utilities based on frost session, and I can go through that process again. A very streamlined way to understand who's consuming what and where and when. And more importantly, we're cutting out those meetings. We're cutting out those emails about, hey, did you update your site plan based on my new building footprint? Did you update your building footprint based on the new utility service I brought? You can see all of that inside of the design collaboration module. Now, the last thing I want to look at that, again, is part of this process and really starts to talk about the value of BIM is this idea of model coordination. And I'm going to go ahead and close this. Sorry, I cheated a little bit and looked at it. When we bring models, when we bring DWGs into this environment, one of the things that is happening in the background, you don't even have to do this, is that we are running clashes between all of these different models, all of the different elements of your design. We're running clashes, and we can look at where are we running into problems. And you can see, honestly, my friends over here in the structural and we got some stuff going on. Thankfully, I'm going to just stay up here in the civil where we're talking about pipes, and I'm just going to look at what are the issues between the sanitary pipes and the storm pipes. Maybe it's water service and those clashes, but by simply looking at and clicking on any one of those, I then open up a 3D view of that world, and I can see there's my water pipe, there's the sanitary sewer pipe, and yeah, I've got problems. It's the sort of thing that is really easy to miss when we look at a 2D drawing. It's really easy to just see a single line on the page and let your mind gloss over it. But when we model in 3D and we allow the software to do this coordination for us, we're not going to miss this. We're not going to. And so now we can say, all right, I see that there is a clash. Let's go ahead and, do something about it. So in this case, we'll go ahead and create an issue. And you know what? I'm going to create the issue on sort of that side. And I'm going to say, there's the issue. And again, Lou is going to get to bear the brunt of this issue. And we're going to simply say, hey, let's go ahead, and we've got a clash here.
Yep, and there's the email.
What's that? Did you just get an email already?
Yep.
Nice. So we, of course, we want to make sure Lou's aware of it. Root cause there's a screenshot showing the problem. I'm going to go ahead and add in a deep description here. Oh, come here. Let me add in push. I'm going to put in a vert bin in H2O. So I'm even going to sort of describe how I want them to solve the problem, but you can do whatever you want to do. You can just let them solve it or not, or however. And again, because I want this done, let's go ahead and say it's got to be done by Friday. Need to update quantities for, because I'm adding in some bins, right? Bins. That's going to change my quantity. So I want to update that and be able to take that out to my construction estimation team. That's model coordination. As soon as you upload those models into this coordination space, this collaboration space, we are doing this coordination and these checks for you. You don't have to download 100 files. You don't have to have a VDC manager sitting there and running Navisworks and running conflicts. We're going to do it for you in the construction cloud, speed up your time, and you spend less time doing tedious things. Okay. We've got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and jump into some Q&A, but let's take a quick reminder. Collaboration tools, as they are today, are not built for the way we work in the AEC world. They're not built for construction. They're not built for the large files. They're not built for remote work like we are all facing and still facing right now, and probably for the foreseeable future. Civil 3D users, they get to go to an Autodesk Docs drive instead of a Maps network drive. For those users, it's a very simple and easy transition to move to the Construction Cloud environment. They're just pointing to a different drive. For IT administrators, we've given you tools to manage that cache, make that file management simple and easy, and take advantage of your bandwidth. And don't forget to disconnect from the VPN. For project managers, you have instant access to the drawings when you want to look at them. You're not waiting on your team to pull together check sets. You are marking up files in a way that your design team sees those marks and sees those comments immediately, whether they are in a cube 6 feet away, or whether they at their home office 200 miles away. They're going to see those markups as soon as you publish, and they're going to be able to keep that design process moving faster and more efficiently without doing any transmissions. The extended stakeholders, they're going to see your data as you release it. They're not going to ask, do I have the latest and greatest? Because you're going to submit those things through the design collaboration environment. And when you are worried about pipes slamming into foundations and walls slamming into doors and windows not working, you're going to be able to use the Autodesk model coordination tools to understand really what's going on and make sure that your project is buildable before anybody delivers a single stick to the site. The Construction Cloud is here to make that process more efficient. It's designed to create a common data environment that works for every single stakeholder in the project and give them access to the data when they need it, where they need it, with the right level of access and the right level of permissions and auditing. So let's jump back in and talk a little bit about some best practices. Lou, I'm going to let you run through a couple of these things while I get a sip of water, and then we'll jump into Q&A.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, a lot of questions. In fact, a couple questions have already come up about migrating existing projects. I'm going to paste a link to my last year's AU presentation regarding what it takes to upload a project if you've already got it out on the network. You know, the big thing is just making sure things are set to relative path in your CAD. There's that link. Best practice, however, if you start in the cloud, it makes life a lot easier. Keep the desktop products up to date. That includes Civil 3D, that includes AutoCAD. Some of you may not have realized that for a few years now, those are separate downloads. And Desktop Connector. I think James mentioned that earlier about making sure that tool is up to date, but a lot of the advances that get rolled into this product come through Desktop Connector, the file compatibilities and a lot of that syncing behavior. So keep that up to date for everybody. Make sure everyone's on the same version. If you're getting into this product, definitely make sure that it works in your environment. I encourage people to get on those trials. And if you are going to migrate, check out my AU presentation. The best way to work with it is using that Desktop Connector tool, because it's gonna scoop up all your references.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's see. We had actually a surprising number of Q&A questions about Vault. Let's talk about how does Docs compare to Vault? Does it replace Vault? Does it supplement? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So Autodesk Vault is our EVM solution that is really very focused on the design and manufacturing process with life cycles and all those sorts of things. And to some extent, it was an option for users who wanted to push data into a data repository and be able to check things in and check things out and go through approval process and those sorts of tools. It's a decent tool. It's really a great tool if you are working with Inventor and working with widgets and going through sort of a manufacturing process. It works for Civil 3D. It's pretty tough with Revit. The big difference, though, is that it's a local hardware solution and it's something you implement on your end. So you're sort of facing some of those same challenges with a remote workforce that you were always going to face no matter what solution you use. You're going to have to VPN in. You're going to have to download things. You're going to have to move files back and forth between a piece of physical hardware located wherever you are and then your local user machine. From the standpoint of modern viewing and all those sorts of tools, the Construction Cloud is just leaps and bounds ahead. Vault from a DG and civil standpoint has sort of stopped. And all of our effort is bringing these AEC teams together, using those conflict checks, using those viewers, using those markup tools in the browser as opposed to a desktop tool. So Vault is a valuable tool, but if you are looking at modern collaboration, really the last 4 years, all of Autodesk's efforts have been pointed at the Construction Cloud. And if you haven't made a move in either direction, I can't in good conscience tell you to even really look at Vault anymore.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Yeah. Let's see. Another question I think would be great to answer live is file sharing. What if I want to share a file with someone who doesn't have Docs at all?
So there's a couple of options. One, we do have the ability to publish essentially a download link from Docs and email that out. It's okay, right? I mean, but it's the same problem we've faced for years, where you are essentially sending a link into the void, and you're dependent on them, one, opening it, you're dependent on them downloading it, you're dependent on them doing something with it in a timely manner, and you don't know if any of those things happened. Autodesk Docs is available as a separate purchase. You can allow people to buy Docs, and the great thing about it is once that contractor, once that outside party, once that review agency or owner is signed into Docs, they can use it across all of the projects that they have access to. So what we're really seeing engineers and consultants do is say, hey, if you're not on this, it's worth it for us to get you onto this Docs common data environment, right? Common across the entire team, not just my team, not just me and Lou and Chris and Brittany, but everybody involved in the project working from a common data environment is worth money. It's a valuable change. Now, how you do that is entirely up to you and your accounting team. I personally, we used to buy access to Buzzsaw back when I was running things, I would give my clients buzzsaw licenses because I didn't want to send them files. I wanted them to be self-serve. It was worth it from my perspective to reduce that drag on the process. Docs, you can buy it for them. You can point them to the downline store. They can point them to a partner, however they want to do it, but get them into the data environment. It's so much better than sending out files.
Absolutely. Let's see. There's a question out there about older versions of Civil 3D. What if someone's working with, maybe they're on 2020 and, maybe the newest version the oldest version that will work with the cloud is 2020.1. I don't remember. That's still on our slide. So what if somebody's working on that, but now they need to work with somebody who's using an older version of Civil 3D? How does that affect someone in the cloud?
It's going to be a challenge, to be perfectly honest. One, simply because things change in Civil 3D. The biggest issue you're going to run into is that Civil 3D 2020.1 became aware, not like Skynet aware, but it became Construction Cloud aware, and it became desktop connector aware. And what that means is that when I open a file in that Civil 3D 2020.1, the desktop connector sees that file open and sends a lock up to the Construction Cloud. If you are working with 2016, 2018, what have you, right? You're going to see those files sitting in Docs. And when you open that file up, nothing is going to happen in the cloud. And so what you are doing is you're putting that data at risk. Now, you can work around it by you can make a phone call, send an email. Hey, I'm going to work in this drawing for a little while. Don't open it. You can manually lock it, but that lock doesn't necessarily get pushed down by that person in a timely manner. If they go double click that file, it's possible they open and you wind up with a last in wins situation. So it can be done. It's workable, but wow, I would do everything you can to at least get on the versions of Civil 3D, of DWGs that are Construction Cloud aware, and your life will be a lot better. I do have one. I saw one scrolling that I want to question on. Somebody asked about what are we dealing with references, support files, all those sorts of things. And Lou, we've actually just tested this out in the last few months. One of the things you can do is Civil 3D will let you point to an AutoCAD, will let you point those support paths to an Autodesk Docs folder. So you can set up a project at your company called templates, standards, support, whatever you want to do. Put all of your DWG stuff in there, put all those fonts, put all those things in there that you need for your drawings, for your lines, for your plot settings. Excuse me. You can put those things in a common project and you can point the support path there, and it does work. So something to absolutely take a look at and work with on your local partner. All right, we are out of time for today. I want to make sure everybody gets to lunch on time. Chris, Lou, thank you very much for all your support in the Q&A. Brittany, thanks for all your help on the polls and questions and background and setup and making sure I got into the right Zoom account today. Everybody else, thanks for joining. Always fun to have this time with you. Appreciate it. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your Autodesk partner, your local channel partner, and we'll see you on an upcoming webinar soon. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Bye.